Good afternoon. We're going to start our NASCAR Nationwide Series availability. In advance of our first practice this afternoon, we have now been joined by Sam Hornish Jr., driver of the number 54 Monster Energy Toyota. Sam, a lot has happened since the last time we spoke in this environment. You've had a son, and you've also switched race teams to drive for Joe Gibbs Racing, and this is your first start for the team here at Talladega. I believe you'll have 7 starts total throughout the season. So talk a little bit about maybe what you've been doing during that time, and then also kind of what it feels like to be back in the Nationwide Series starting this weekend.
Well, I have to say that you really would think that it would have felt like a very long time since Miami, being that it's been closing in on 6 months. But the fact of having a third child, a lot of things happening with having a 6 and 3-year-old, and also switching teams. It's seemed to go by very fast, and I'm really feel blessed and fortunate that I've had the opportunity to get my foot in the door at JGR, to be able to be in the Monster Energy car, to have a sponsor that makes a product that I use on a daily basis, and I feel like it's just it's very exciting. But on the other hand, we're coming to Talladega, and there's a lot of things that are out of a driver's control when it gets down to it. So, my big thing is just to use this weekend to learn the team a little bit more. I've gone to a few races starting off the season, had the opportunity to listen to Kyle and Adam Stevens work together. And this is, I feel like, a lot of ways to practice qualifying in the first half of the race, or first 3 quarters of the race, is me getting to know the team and all those things, and just super excited about the opportunity that I'm given, and had a lot of fan support about how much people say they want to see me back in the car full time, and believe me, I want to be in it, but having the opportunity to get in this level caliber of a race car makes me feel really good about it, and I'm looking forward to this year for sure. I know it's only 7 races, but I already got one freebie this year. I'm getting a fill-in for Denny out in California, and hopefully we'll figure out a way to get myself in some more races and in this JGR equipment.
All right, we'll go ahead and open for questions for Sam. Okay, let's start back there with Mike, and then we'll come up to the front here.
Mike Neff from FrontStretch.com. Sam, saying is you haven't been in the car but once since Miami. How are you keeping yourself fresh on the driving side of things? Any testing or running at local short tracks?
Well, I chauffeur my kids around a lot. That's about the biggest thing right now. We got 400 miles of practice out in California. I've done some go-karting work. I've done some simulator stuff, but very, very little as far as what I've been accustomed to in the past. But I feel like the good thing about this weekend is it's not one of those weekends where it's high stress right off the get-go, because there's a lot of things that are with this setup that you run on these super speedways that are not interchangeable. You're not thrashing to find a little bit more speed. It's kind of there or it isn't. You can change some things, but it's not like going to Iowa that we're going to have in a couple weeks. And fortunate enough to get an opportunity now with Iowa having some resurfacing done there, to get the opportunity to go test there. So I feel like by the time we get to Iowa, I'm going to have a whole lot more seat time, and I feel like I'm going to feel pretty comfortable for the fact that I went to California and hadn't been in a car for a long time, and got to go out there and get the car up into the top 10, in a seat that wasn't mine, and a car that wasn't set up for me. I feel like that 400 miles was as beneficial as anything that I'm going to have throughout the beginning of the year here.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sam, Al Muskie from the Anniston Star here in town. For a guy like me who's on the periphery of your sport and know generally what's going on, can you just take me and us through the emotions of the end of last year, being so close to the cheese and then out? I can't imagine something like that. Would you just help me with that?
Yeah, there's been, I guess this is at least the 3rd or 4th time in my career where I've been to a place that's been similar to this. Before I ever won my first IndyCar race, I was in a situation where it was almost what I felt like was going to be the end of my career, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And in the course of a week, it went from not having a ride for that weekend to getting a ride, leading some laps, and putting myself in position to be at a bigger team. And that turned out to be 2 out of 3 championships in a row and 11 race wins. So that was the first time I went through it, and then I went through it in 2011 running a part-time schedule when I was still at Penske, and parlayed that to within 2 years of almost winning the championship. And maybe that's setting me up for a failure or something else, but it puts me in a mindset where I've been here, and I know that if I can do the right things behind the wheel and also do the right things with the sponsors, that hopefully I will be able to put myself in the same situation, and instead of coming up 3 points short of the championship, I might be able to win it this next time.
And then just to follow on that, did you, when it happened, when the end of the last one came, did you have something in the works quickly, or did you think that maybe it might be a while this time, even with the success that you've enjoyed throughout your career once you'd gotten in a car? Because you never know when the end kind of comes,
Well, the good thing for me, and really what my opinion is if you're going to be somewhere for the length of time that I was, and you can get your foot in the door somewhere else, I mean, there's not very many. There's only one other place I can think of that matches this caliber of an organization for the wins and things like that. And I'm just really excited that Monster Energy and Joe Gibbs Racing gave me the opportunity to basically be a part-time guy. And that's exactly right. You never know what each thing's going to turn into. I went out to California to be there in case Matt Kenseth needed to leave, and I ended up getting to run Denny Hamlin's car. I mean, that's how these things go. And sometimes not being obligated to somebody and maybe sitting at home a little bit more than you'd like to is better than being obligated to somebody and being out there and racing, and then when that next opportunity comes along, you don't get it. And that's been one of the great things that the guys at JGR have told me from the start. As long as I fulfill my commitment to them, if I get an opportunity to do some other stuff, they're more than willing, because they want to see me out there running as much as they can. So I feel very fortunate that I have somebody that's has that kind of an outlook, and really have made me feel from the get-go that they have my best interest in mind about giving me this opportunity, but also on how to allow me to move forward too.
All right, if we can get a microphone over here to Woody. Oh, Chris, do you have a question too? Okay, go ahead, Chris, and then Woody, and then we'll go back to you, Chris. Okay.
Woody Kane with MRN. I'm just curious how crazy you expect or rowdy you expect this knockout qualifying session to be here at a super speedway.
Which one? I mean, the nationwide cars seemed to do a pretty good job of it when went to Daytona, and there was probably a little bit more of people getting to know what it was going to be like and just trying to get through that first one. But I would say that you would expect a similar thing. You get sometimes the Cup guys are out there, and it might be a little bit different because there's a lot more guys that are going for that pole or want that good starting spot. But I think that there's always that issue that you could have some kind of a problem, because you're putting some guys, even if you've got 3 or 4 guys together, they're going to want to get behind the main part of the pack because there is so much speed back there, and you have guys falling back, overlapping each other. And I think that the only reason I would say that the Cup cars, might have a little bit more issue of it is because those guys are all more adept in doing that and falling back. So whereas some of the guys over here were just looking to get in a pack and run because they knew that was going to be enough to put them into the race, where those guys might be a little bit more aggressive with moving those things around. But I don't know. I hope it goes really smoothly. I think it's a great opportunity, but it is a little bit nerve-wracking, when you look at just even the JGR situation for this weekend. On the nationwide side, got myself, which is the first race that I'm scheduled to be in, Bubba's first race of the year on the nationwide side, and Elliott, and we're all, I'm sure we're all going to try to work out how to do it, and who's going to lead, who's going to be in the back. You want to keep the pack together, so you don't want to lose the third guy. So it's going to be a little bit interesting, but I think that's part of the fun of it, and there's definitely strategy involved in it, as opposed to where guys have said over the past few years, it's all the car, all I got to do is get in it, turn it for a little bit. This is definitely bringing the driver back into it some more.
All right, let's go to Chris, and then we'll come up to Dustin.
Chris Knight, NASCAR Wire Service. Sam, I was just wondering about the infrastructure compared to Penske at Joe Gibbs Racing. Have you noticed anything big as far as working on the cars, or just the way things are run over there? And also, if you had an opportunity to talk to Kurt Busch after he practiced this week at Indianapolis.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of difference in how the organizations are run, being that the JGR operation is in a separate building from the Cup cars, whereas Penske's got all of their stock car stuff in the same building, and you've got the crew chiefs and engineers are all put right there together. At Penske, there's a little bit more of that trickle down effect from the Cup side, but I feel like when you look at the strength that JGR's had for so long in the Nationwide Series, I don't feel like there's nothing lacking there, other than maybe needing more space to be able to throw everybody together if they wanted to do that. But when I look at the cars, I feel like there's definitely differences in people's mindsets as far as what's important to be fast. And the big thing for me is this is still going to be my first time in a JGR Nationwide car, when I go out there this weekend. So I don't really know what the differences are in the feel of the race cars, and I'm really looking forward to getting to Iowa just to be able to have a definitive, what are the differences in what the cars feel like and what they want to be quick. So outside of that, I haven't talked to Kurt since he ran. I talked to him quite extensively last year before he went and ran the car for the first time, and he had some really good questions about what to expect out of the car, and it really was one of those positions where I knew he was really serious about going and running the Indianapolis 500 based on the amount of thought that he had put into it and the questions that he was asking me.
All right, we're going to go to Dustin Long and then to Stan.
Dustin Long, MRN.com. A couple questions, Sam. First off, nearly about a quarter of the field here this weekend has not competed in a nationwide race here at Talladega. Now, some of the guys have competed at Daytona earlier this season. What are the challenges? If any of them came up to you, what would be the things, or what would be the concerns about potentially having so many different people with not having the nationwide experience at this track?
In some ways, this track is easier to run at because it's wider. It's got a lot more room out there on the racetrack. But that being said, it also gives people the opportunity to make it 3 or 4 wide easier, and to maybe get themselves in a bad position. The start-finish line being moved down and around the other end of the trial definitely gives the opportunity for coming off of 4 for people to make more moves. The track being wider gives that opportunity as well. So I thought that it went, for the amount of rookies that there were at Daytona, I thought that it went pretty good, for what was to be expected. And those guys all have another race under their seats or under the belt, and I feel like it really gives them the opportunity to maybe have a little bit more confidence coming in here. But I don't know that that's always a good thing when you get to these super speedway races, because sometimes, while it's may not be as exciting for the fans, to get that first race where you just follow in line, make sure that you take care of your equipment. You feel like you're just out there learning. That might put you in a little bit better position, as opposed to, all right, I got this figured out now, I'm going to figure out how to get to the front. And really, this package, the way that it's changed, even there's been some small tweaks to it from what I ran last in these cars, and I'm excited to see what the differences are at Talladega, just based on the fact that the track is enough wider to give people more opportunities to move.
And I also wanted to ask you, how does the simulation and the go-karting what you've done kind of prepare you, or does it help you at all for this type of track? And I think back to this race a year ago, I know you were involved in the incident. I know you talked about afterwards that one car kind of came down and kind of, you know, a small amount of space, and it kind of forced you down, and all of a sudden there was the accident. Can anything like that kind of prepare or help with just the quickness of how things happen out there, or is that just something once you get back out there that you've just got to stick your nose in and just get reacquainted with what happens in those situations?
Well, it's always tough here because there's a lot of times when people move, and you know, last year I've replayed that in my head a lot of times, that if you know somebody wanted me to push them and they moved and it really was too late to make that move, and I moved trying to not hit them and actually got myself turned around based on it. But you never know what happens when you hit somebody when they move and you just turn them then instead of. But there's a certain amount of that callousness that, you know, some guys that have been very successful at plate racing have been able to just, when somebody puts them in a position they don't like, instead of that flinch second of moving to try to keep yourself out of trouble, they just turn that car around and, you know, keep going upon their way. I don't know. I haven't been able to get myself in that position. Maybe running go-karts will help out a little bit because you can bump some people around. But the big thing for me with the running the go-karts and whatnot, and the little bit of simulator stuff that I got to do, it's just about keeping my mind in the game, really. It's good physical activity as well to be out there and to run, but you know, there just hasn't been enough of an opportunity for me to really do it the way that I would like to. And I would say that I could have went out and ran 20 go-kart races and, you know, been in the simulator for 3 days, and it wouldn't have prepared me as much or gave me as much as what that race in California did. You know, the fact that I got to go run 400 miles out there, really, I mean, it just knocked the dust off and gave me an opportunity to get in a car and to talk on the radio and to think about some of the things that I maybe could have done better. And working with different people a lot of times is a good help, because you can figure out what people like and what they don't like, and, you know, what you like about them as well. So there's no substitute for that seat time and being in a actual stock car and running around.
All right, Stan, go ahead.
Hi, Stan Creekmore with RPMTonight.com. Sam, it's going to be you and two other guys that you've mentioned, Elliott Sadler and your other teammate, in qualifying. Now, is that going to be enough to put together a speed that could give you a chance to sit on the pole?
Not just the three of us hooked up isn't going to be able to do that, but it being able to get behind the pack and to use what, you know, that pack is doing, the amount of air that they're moving, that's what gives you those opportunities for being on the pole. And do we need to be first here? No, but the closer you can be to the other end of pit road obviously helps you from getting any kind of fender creases or anything like that. So we're going to try to, because not only are we going to have to do that in practice and qualifying, but the three of us being able to work well together in the race is going to be, you know, exponentially, you know, beneficial for us. So I think that it's really good for us to have the opportunity to now, instead of what we used to do in practice, we'd come out here and we'd run maybe 5 laps because you were going to push, you know, you're going to see how far you could push. How did my car feel getting pushed? How did I feel pushing somebody else? And then you go out and change it over into qualifying trim, and you go out and run by yourself for the rest of the time. So this allows you to get like 3 times the amount of activity as far as getting yourself ready for the race and being able to go out there and to work together as a team.
Okay, and now, based on everything you said, it sounds like you have a little bit of concern about how well you'll run in the race itself. But in having watched you over the years, you're a guy who has a checkered flag in his mind. You have that first place finish. Is there any reason to believe you don't have a solid opportunity to win this race?
It all depends on, you know, whether I manage to avoid what's going on out there. I mean, it's just not a race like, you know, Richmond last weekend, where I have the opportunity to, you know, it's really about the driver and the car, and there's not as much circumstance. There's circumstance everywhere, but there's just more of it here because it brings, you know, some guys that, you know, maybe, you know, haven't had the experience. You know, it gets them a little bit closer, and it the guys that have a lot of experience, sometimes it takes it away. But you see the guys that win these races. I mean, there's a lot of times where it's the same, group of people that are up there. They've got a great opportunity, but it's just if you can somehow keep yourself up towards the front, and that was very important at Daytona this year. It's a lot different than what it's been in previous years. And, I feel like the last 4 or 5 restrictor plate races that I went to that I've had great opportunities, but I also know the fall race of 2012, I was the first car on the outside line. I'm like, I finally did it. I got to the middle of 3 and 4, and I'm in position to win this race. And about that time, I saw the bottom of Tony Stewart's car come up over top and right in front of me. So, even if you position yourself, to where you think coming off of 4, we're going to have, the best opportunity for a great run to get down there, it doesn't mean anything because it's a long way from the middle of 3 and 4 to the start-finish line.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to go to Kelly and then take our final question from Chris.
Kelly Crandall from Popular Speed. Sam, you came in here, you're all excited. When you look back to last year and how things kind of ended with Penske after the two of you became almost synonymous with each other, do you have any ill feelings or is it just that happened and I have to start over again? Or how, when something like that happens, when you guys were together so long, how did you walk away from that, especially after what happened in Homestead?
Well, if we would have went out as champions, it would probably have been a little bit easier to deal with. But I feel like a lot of that's in the past, and I remember all the things that Roger did for me, and I remember, doing my best to live up to the things that he expected for me. And I feel like we both could have done things better along the way, but we both did some pretty good things as a group together. And if you hold on to any kind of hard feelings or anything like that, I know why they did what they did, and I'm not kind of person that holds grudges, so I'm more excited about the opportunity that I have moving forward than I ever will be about thinking, of what could have been. So I'm a kind of person that it's, I guess the glass is half full. I'm an optimist, and I'll put a lot of stuff behind me and just move on because I also remember that, I started driving for Roger because I wanted to win the Indianapolis 500, and I started driving over there. He hired me because he wanted to win an IndyCar championship, and we both did that together. So I won my Indy 500, he got his championship, and it makes me feel pretty good that we started off on the right foot, and maybe from there we didn't always go hand in hand, but almost won a championship. And man, it's always easier if you think back if everything would have went perfect. But man, I'm just I had some opportunities going towards the end of last year, and when I got the call that I was going to maybe have the opportunity to run the Monster Energy car, and I had the opportunity to sit down with Joe and JD, I walked out of that meeting. I'm like, I got to give it 24 hours because right now everything in my brain tells me to go ahead and to sign up, whatever they want, go for it, because I felt like they were the kind of people, and the way that they presented themselves and the things that they said in that first meeting just made me feel like this is exactly what I need to do. And I felt the same way after 24 hours, and the same way after 48 hours, and the same way after 48 days. So I just feel like it's a really good opportunity for me, and it's really been difficult to wait 5 months to be able to do something with it. But on the same hand, patience is a virtue, so I'll do what I can.
All right, we'll take our final question from Chris. Go ahead.
Sam, Chris Knight from NASCAR Wire Service again. Iowa Speedway announced earlier today that you're going to test there, I believe on the 6th. I just was wondering how crucial that test is going to be with Joe Gibbs, and then also I think going back there for the race weekend, there's a big test session on Friday before actually everything gets rolling on Saturday. I just wondered if you could talk about that.
I think it's really beneficial for us to have that opportunity because it allows me and Adam Stevens, all the other guys on the team, to get one more day of working together. And we were already excited that we had a little bit of a test day that Friday leading up to the race. So I feel like this is even better. It's a great opportunity, and that's the biggest thing is really getting that communication down. And I can go into Adam Stevens' office and I can talk to him about all the things that I want to do, and listen to him about all the things he wants to do. But until you get into that, let's go to the racetrack, let's run laps, we'll talk about the car, what it needs to be better, finding out what the key things are that everybody hits off of. There's nothing that you can do that prepares you for that. You just got to go and get those opportunities. So the fact that we've got one more day to work on it is a great, great help to me, in my opinion.
All right, Sam, best of luck this weekend, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.